Hi everyone, Paul Capozio here with another webinar for you, and this is what I would consider an agnostic video. This is not selling anything. This is to really kind of help you in any area of your life, whether it be in your business life or your personal life, where you can get some insight or just hear someone else talk about the struggles that they go through. I'm going to try to address issues that are coming up with fear of failure and when that may come up in your life. You know, you'll find many successful people that when they get to a certain stage, they will find that there's some sort of blockage that comes up, and they're called limiting beliefs. Many people have them initially, where that person who is comfortable in a 9 to 5 job, but never really had the confidence to get into their own business, yet it's a dream that they always had. Well, there are limiting beliefs at play. Then you have people who get off to an amazing start and build a business, and let's say their dream was to have a national franchise of floral shops, for lack of a better example. And they'll stop at that one store, and then they opened up a second store, and then something failed in that second store, and they couldn't really quite put their finger on what was going on. Well, those sometimes are created by limiting beliefs or victim mentalities. So are you creating unhealthy forces in your life that you don't even realize are there? I'll give you a great example. We're watching something right now. This is October 2018. And if you watch what's going on with Elon Musk right now, there's a little bit of a personality issue going on. There's some bad choices, I think, that he's currently making, and that's probably due to a lot of outside forces and the demands of a publicly traded company and SpaceX and the car issue. If you go back, there's a movie called Tucker about the Tucker automobile and how the auto industry, pressured that. And I'm sure there's a little bit of that going on. So I want to not say that I understand everything that's going on in Elon's life, but if we step back and look at it, we can see how some are self-inflicted wounds and some are created by our environment. And if we allow our environment to impact our personal life, it can be very dangerous. We need to know how to isolate ourselves from that, and that's critical. So we're going to get moving on right now, guys, and move on to our first slide, because I want to try to give you a visual as well as just hearing me talk. So, how do we eliminate self-sabotage and dealing with setbacks? And that's a lot of times when a self-sabotage moment will come up with setbacks, especially in new businesses, right? When you have a new business or a startup, and I will say this, I love startup businesses, right? I just want to shut my phone off here, guys. I love startup businesses, and I'll tell you why. When I was very young, I had a major financial difficulty when I was in my late 20s. I was just about to get married, had to file bankruptcy because I was in this small electrical contracting business, and I had a client who went bankrupt on me, and so ultimately I had to file bankruptcy because I couldn't pay the bills, they couldn't pay me. So I was out in the job market again, and I had two opportunities. I interviewed with two companies. One company was American Express. American Express offered me a job of a assistant to the director of electrical maintenance in their Greenwich Street building in New York City, which is right down by Ground Zero. And that was to oversee all of their data center, all of the electrical connections, all of the backup battery systems they had, all throughout American Express. It was a pretty good job, really. I mean, benefits, et cetera, et cetera. And I remember going through and dealing with HR and the personnel department, and then getting interviewed. And then I was interviewed by vice presidents of the company's data and equipment, the computer people there. I was interviewed by the sales people there, and then I was interviewed by the electrical maintenance department, and as well as the maintenance department as a whole. And I thought that was odd, but as they told me, well, the sales department is concerned about my ability because if things went down, they would affect their ability to sell. I think if they lost an hour's worth of power or processing, they would lose, I don't know, like 25, $30 million, per hour because of not processing credit card transactions. And the same thing with the computer department is understanding that, hey, this is their baby. They need to protect their computer data, and they wanted to know who, what, where, and how this was being done, even if our responsibility ended at the electrical outlet. And that was the truth. Our responsibility ended at the electrical outlet. The other job offer I had was with a small contracting company in Newark, New Jersey, and it was only a four-person office, and it was the job was for an estimator project manager. And even though that was a much smaller company, I realized that with American Express, I was really going to be a number. I doubt anybody really high up the totem pole was even going to know that I existed. And even if I was very successful at my job by reducing costs, would it even make an impact to the bottom line? And then I looked at this small contracting company out of Newark, New Jersey, where that if I was able to increase sales by 15-20%, they were going to see that on the bottom line. If I was successful at estimating and getting projects awarded to the company, I would make a difference. I was interviewed by the owner of the company, right? I was trained by the owner's son and the owner themselves. So it was a lot different environment. So yes, I thought that, that was going to give me a lot more runway to take off on. So let's talk about these 10 points, especially when you're dealing with a startup company, because there's always going to be setbacks, there's always going to be difficulty. I'm dealing with a network marketing company right now, very successful, new startup company with an amazing product and nothing but issues with handling the explosive growth that they're having. We're growing. I got in very early on when there was a few hundred distributors, and now we're over 60,000 in way less than a year, and it's creating some bottlenecks, and people are challenged with that. So, so there's a little bit of a self-serving matter to this, but I thought it's important for everyone. Or if you're in a relationship and you're struggling a little bit. I've been married for 30 years, and you're not married for 30 years without going through some setbacks. And my wife and I have had tremendous amount of setbacks. About 7 years ago, we actually separated for a couple of years. So trust me, we've been there and we'll be able to get through it. And some of these techniques, even though we didn't realize that we were utilizing them, they just happened kind of by osmosis. So we kind of put them down in writing, and hopefully it could help you. So the first thing is acceptance. When you have an issue, or you have a personality flaw, or you get dealt with a setback, accepting that, okay, this is happening. I realize it's happening. But the next thing you need to do when the acceptance is going through, similar to what they do in a hospital when there's a major car accident, or like a pile up, and they bring all of these victims into the hospital. And they would do what's called triage, right? If you ever watched the show MASH, right, when they talk about, okay, the doctors would go out and they would say, okay, this guy's got to go to surgery first, this guy can wait, I'm sorry, but this guy's not going to make it. Well, that's triage. And what it's doing is it's establishing what needs to be done immediately to stop the bleeding, for lack of a better analogy, what's going to be done short term, and then what's long term. So understanding and accepting what's going on is very, very important. Sit back, take a breath, and say, okay, this is what I got to deal with. What does this really mean? And to have that gloom and doom attitude, like, oh my God, it's all over. It's never all over. There's only one time when something is all over, when you decide to say it's done. And you could do that subconsciously. The next thing I want to mention is self-esteem, because self-esteem, believe it or not, you would think it's the anti-self-sabotage, but it can be. Many people are under a false sense of self-esteem, and I happen to be right now in the network marketing business. We are in the human resources business as well, but many of the people in network marketing have very, very big personalities. So self-esteem usually doesn't seem like it's something that's lacking, but what you need to realize is, are you creating an aura of self-esteem, and you're doing it to get over and overcome some of your own limitations? And if you are, that's very dangerous if you don't manage that accordingly, because you will get to a point in the road where that fake it till you make it is not good enough. So what are you doing to understand where you really are, and do a little introspective evaluation of yourself to say, okay, this is what I'm doing right now, but what happens when I get down that road where I'm really going to need to understand who I am? So put that time in now. I'll think one of the things I try to establish for people is, think of it like when you're skiing. And if you've never skied before in your life and you go for skiing lessons because you want to get on the mountain, the first thing to do is take you to what they call the bunny hill. And the bunny hill is just a small hill, and you practice, and you do what's called the snow plow, where you put your skis together this way and you're making it very resistant to the snow, and then you straighten them out and you pick up speed and you go. And if you do it this way, you'll make a left turn. You do it that way, you make a right turn. And we think we have the skill set down. So we're ready to go on the mountain, and we get up and we're a little nervous, and we start snow plowing down a much, much bigger hill. And then we say, you know what, we can handle this. It's not so bad. And then we put our skis parallel to each other, and we start picking up speed. And what happens is we're very confident, we're excited, we start to smile, but then we start to doubt a little bit if we have that skill set to be able to navigate a turn at 10 to 15 times the speed that we normally would have. And that's where a lot of times we will self-sabotage ourselves. What do most people do when they're on a hill and they can't slow down? They fall down. They'll intentionally fall so they don't pick up any additional speed. So, if you understand the analogy, that will happen in business, and that can be very dangerous. The other thing is, a setback is not a failure. If you're going to have issues with your business or your computers or your marriage or your children, right? Your kid gets in trouble at school, or he got 3 Fs, right? That's a setback. You're not going to tell them you're never going to school again. That's it. We're done. We're finished. It's not going to happen. You don't do that, right? If you think about, a child who, is learning how to walk and the kid falls 50, 60 times, he's not going to say, that's it. This is not for me, right? We all continue on, and we're going to learn how to walk. So understand that setbacks are not failures. And if you think they are, that's where you need to work on some of that personal development inside. The next thing is, what have you learned from the situation? If it's your competitor that's coming after you, or someone got the account and you didn't, or you wanted to get back into a relationship with someone and they found someone else, well, what did you learn? Did you not move fast enough? Did you move too quick? Were you, too aggressive? Were you not aggressive enough? And what can you learn from that? Every setback is also a time for education, right? There are no real failures that are not learning experiences. And if your failures are not helping you learn, well, then you're not looking at them correctly. And that's part of acceptance, but it's also part of that learning experience. I'm not saying you need to enjoy a setback or a failure, but you definitely need to appreciate a setback or a failure. If you don't think you're ready to start, and you want to wait on your front porch for every traffic light to be green between here and your destination, you will never leave the porch. So you have to realize that you will never, ever be 100% ready. I'm just sorry that if you understand that you're going to have to start moving before all your ducks are in a row, that is the nature of a business. And you will hit certain setbacks. You will hit certain bumps in the road, and you should be ready for it. It's not the end. The other thing is, when you do get a setback or you do get a problem or a failure in your relationship, don't run and hide. And when running and hiding is not only just not picking up the phone if you're in a fight with your spouse, it also may be getting into a fight with your spouse so that you're not communicating, right? So that's another way of hiding, is hiding in plain sight. The other thing is, if you're in a business and you don't have the proper answer for a customer, it's better to sit down and talk to that customer, explain to them that you don't have an answer for them, than not having an answer at all. It's managing the expectation. And we do that in life on a regular basis. Managing the expectation. Tell people what to expect. You want to underpromise and overdeliver. Find inspiration and support from your world. Real simple. Who are you hanging out with? Who are you reaching out to inspire you? What support are you getting from and are they from the right people? And what is the intention of their support? So be careful who you entrust, but also go to find inspiration. And you can find inspirations from some very, very unique places. And also, I would stress, I'm going to stress it a few times too, and this is personal development. Get on YouTube and watch videos. Get to a Tony Robbins event. If you're in network marketing like we are, go to the Eric Worre event in Vegas and see what these people have to say. Expose yourself to inspiration. Expose yourself to support. If you are in a business, and find 2 or 3 people in that company that you work with, or find someone who's going through a divorce, and not necessarily to commiserate, but to really just get support. Okay? When you are in this situation, don't get stuck for too long. If you want to lick your wounds, I get it. It's okay. If you want to complain, it's okay. But then what? Then what are you going to do? If you're going to give up, then give up, and then start something new. But I guarantee you it'll happen again to you. There'll be some other issue that's going to come up that you feel is someone else's fault. So you need to not get stuck too long. Great. Lick your wounds. Move on. Take action and go forward. Now, I'm going to leave the last point with something that I strive for, probably the biggest thing that I think of in my mind, because I have my own struggles, daily. And the first thing is that I realize that you see all of these shows where a woman her son is ran over by a car and she has the strength to lift the car off. of the kid, right, to save the kid. And then you have the movie with Leonardo DiCaprio where he's in the woods and they leave him for dead, and the bear half eats him, and he comes back for revenge, but he survived in the wilderness, right? Or the one with where the guy literally cuts his arm off. He's the hiker and he gets his arm stuck and he has to cut his arm off and then walk, whatever it is, 6 days to civilization. But that's survival instinct, and we all have that. Every one of us watching this video right now, regardless of your physical ability, has tremendous survival instinct. It's natural, it's feral, it's in our DNA. If we can try to understand that there are ways to build our success instinct similar to our survival instinct, maybe not to the same level, but to kind of understand that conceptually, think of how powerful that would be. If you could have it where it's ingrained in you, and that needs to be learned, right? Our survival instinct is instinctive. So we need to, if we want to create a new instinct for us and for the future, we need to start to build that in. We need to start to create that into our DNA. So we're going to move on to the next one in just a second. Okay, pattern interrupters. So we've talked about the 10 things we can do to try to overcome self-sabotage, but a lot of this has to do with negative thinking, and we need to block negative thinking as fast and as often as we possibly can. These negative thoughts are going to come into our mind, that I'm not good enough, I can't, I won't, the other person's hurting me, victim mentality. We're watching CNN or Fox News, and I don't care what your political persuasion is, it's all a lot of negative information bombarding us on a regular basis. And we're not supposed to be exposing ourselves to that much negativity. It just doesn't work. Would you rather be at a party where everybody's having a great time, or would you rather attend, a fight or a funeral or whatever? I mean, it's a negative energy is just, it's not good, right? Even though we do from time to time have to expose ourselves to it. So we need to interrupt the pattern. Think of your mind or your brain having a screen door in the front and a screen door on the back, because we're not going to be able to stop negative thoughts from coming in, but we cannot let them, we can prevent them from just rattling around and going over and over and over again. And one of the things are, envision that thought, think of a screen door in the front of your mind and the back of your mind, and let it come in, let it process for a second, and let it go right back out again. You don't want to let that linger. You also want to interrupt that pattern. Every time, like I have this thing on my wrist, it's a rubber band from, I'm in this human growth hormone business, and we had an event in Pittsburgh, and they gave out these Lance Armstrong type bracelets, right? So what I'll do is whenever I have a negative thought, I'll give it a snap. It's going to shock me into saying, okay, my pattern is, I'm going to interrupt that pattern. I'm going to think of a positive thought. I'm going to think of something of what my goals are, and I'm going to refresh my memory about what my why is, what's the reason I'm doing this, and I'm going to interrupt that pattern. If we do that often enough, we will stop allowing those negative thoughts to come in. My buddy sings a chorus from "We Will Rock You." He does it in his head, and he just sings that over and over again until that goes on, and that's his pattern interrupter. You're in the car, honk your horn. So there's a few different things that you could do, but learn and pick just one, and when a negative thought comes in, pattern interrupt, snap your rubber band or whatever it may be, and move on to that positive thought. And try to really eliminate that. Don't try too hard. It's like trying to meditate, right? The worst thing you could do is try to meditate. You're just going to get into that spot where you just cannot relax. All right, we're going to move on a little bit now that we know we have a little skill now that we can interrupt certain patterns and negativity and start eliminating them. This is going to take practice. Okay, what are we going to look for? We need to identify some of those limiting beliefs, or the fear of failure, right? Or the self-sabotage. We need to be able to identify what's going on. And one of the first clues is anxiety. We'll get a feeling of anxiety, that feeling in the pit of your stomach, right? When you get that news, oh my God, our company's changing the pay plan. Oh my God, I think, my relationship might be failing, or, maybe my wife wants a divorce, or whatever that may be. That anxiety that sets in, that fear. So we need to understand that we need to identify that. The next thing is self-sabotage. We need to start recognizing the self-sabotaging behavior that we have, and we all have it from time to time. And sometimes it's a temporary thing because we've gotten maybe 5 or 6 little negative things happen in a row, or other times we have a sincere sense of self-sabotage. One of the things I found with self-sabotage is it doesn't always, and some of those limiting beliefs don't always rear their head right away. We talked a little bit earlier on about someone in the beginning where they will never leave that job to start that business because of that self-sabotage or the limiting belief that they can't do it. But what happens if you're fairly successful, like the woman with the flower shops, right, and stopped at the second one? What happens if you're Elon Musk? Right, and you start seeing some of that self-sabotaging behavior or those limiting beliefs start to, you need to make a change. There's a lot of things at risk there. So understand and identifying and know that it could show up at any time. We can prepare for it and know that, hey, I could be into this thing and making my second $1 million, and all of a sudden, excuse me, all of a sudden, this is going to rear its head. So we need to be prepared for it. We need to be ready, and we need to have those things to stop that from taking hold. The other thing is self-sabotage by a victim mentality. This is one that we don't even realize it's happening because we want to blame it on someone else. If this guy wasn't, pursuing this girl, I would be able to go out with her. Or if my child was at a better school, I think he would have gotten into a better college. Or if the teachers were better, or whatever that may be. You use a victim mentality as an excuse for self-sabotage. To say, well, hey, it's not me, and we need to be aware that we control our own destiny. If we find that something's coming into our lives that we can't control, well, then we need to make some changes. But to claim the victim mentality is and have it truly be self-sabotage in disguise, you need to be aware of that, and we need to be very honest with ourselves to recognize that. The other thing is low self-esteem or lack of confidence. You could fool yourself into thinking you have a self-esteem, and we're seeing it with the whole selfie craze now. That a lot of people who are getting up that social media self-esteem, but when they're in that real world relationship, it doesn't seem to translate. So we need to know that it's a great start to start feeling good about yourself. And if you lack a little bit of self-confidence to do it, but then what? How do you take it to the next level? How do you go from behind a camera to on a stage full of people if that's what you want to do? How do you do it from, turning your social media presence into a business presence? How do you make money with all of that? And then what happens when you take it to the next level where you truly need to interact with people and you need that, or someone's going to attack you? It's going to happen. In fact, the biggest thing with the people who troll people on social media, they're looking for a response. And what people don't realize is, oh, well, just ignore them and they'll go away. Yes, you have a point, but with the proper self-esteem and understanding that you have faith in yourself and who you are, and maybe what your company does, or what your product is, or what your relationship is all about, you're not necessarily going to respond to the troll, but you're going to respond to the people who follow you, the people who look up to you. You're going to want to do some sort of a response in a very, very professional way, so that it's not to react to the troll, but to react to the people that are following you and that are understanding. And that's where your self-esteem and your self-confidence comes in, because you know what's going to happen with a troll. Their whole idea is to kind of attack you on a regular basis over and over and over again. So your message needs to be not towards the person attacking you, but to the person or people who look up to you, your wife, your children. If it's a case of a relationship. In your business, it's your employees, right? If you're a network marketer, it's your team. So all of this is critical, right, to your response. Is a function of your self-confidence. So understanding how to manage things like that. So don't fool yourself into thinking that your self-esteem is at a level that can prepare you for everything. This is a constant process of strengthening your personality. Also, if you're a perfectionist, you're not going to make it. That you need to realize, I've coughed, played with my phone, done anything. I mean, I could try to edit this to try to make this as polished as possible. I refuse to do that. Number one, I know where I come from. Look, you could hear it in my voice. I'm a New Jersey guy, born and raised. Doesn't mean anything. Once I've gotten to the point where this is who I am and I accept who I am, I don't need to edit or do flashy fades in and fades out. If it's not holding your attention, then I got to work on my message, not the way I'm delivering my message. It's what I'm saying. So if you're a perfectionist, you're never going to get started, because it will never be perfect. If you're thinking about having a child and you're in a solid relationship, you're never going to feel 100% confident it's the time to bring a child into the world, or to adopt a child. You're never going to feel it's the right time, or you're making enough money to get that new home, or what ifs. Well, what ifs can keep you from doing a lot, and you don't want to get stuck in that thing, that whole fear of success. So don't be perfect. It's just not going to work. Okay, so you guys heard me talk for a while, and you hopefully got a couple of tips, and you get a little bit of insight into me and the way I think. But what do you do now? Well, we know that we got to be careful and we got to watch for our limiting beliefs, and we know that our limiting beliefs are not necessarily going to show up at the most opportune time. If we know going in, I like people who have the fear of getting started because of their limiting beliefs, because those are things that we can eliminate because they're very obvious. So sometimes I'll find that the people who will start out like a house of fire, they may be the ones who struggle the most midway through some level of success because they never expected to get the curveball of those limiting beliefs, when they were already achieved a significant level of success. We talked about some of those people, and it happens a lot with celebrities. We've seen them implode. So we understand we need to identify, and we need to be in tune with ourselves, and we need to try to eliminate as much negativity in our lives as we possibly can. Well, it's the next thing to do. I put on getting on a winning team. And the reason I say get on a winning team is, who are you hanging out with? Who are you rubbing shoulders with? If those people are dragging you down, well, I guess what? You can love them. And there's no reason you not, should not look out for them. But you need to be around people who are moving in the same direction that you want to move in. Even if you want to borrow some energy from them, you need to realize that, you know, I need to be around the people who are moving in the direction that I'm moving in or want to be in. Surround yourself with people who raise your game. I happen to have been a very good golfer at one time, and I thought that it was something I was going to do forever, and I was down to a very, very low handicap. And still to this day, my buddies will make fun of me because I will actually get them aggravated because being a good golfer, from time to time, I'd be able to pull a great shot out of my bag. And ironically, it's always when someone was watching. So we'd be on the first tee, and my buddies are all better golfers than I am. And 9 times out of 10, I'm going to hit a great shot off the tee. And there's all these people watching from the clubhouse. And it will get them upset because they know they're better golfers than me. I'll go down and hit my second shot into the green, and instead of it going on the green, it'll go into the woods, and I'll get a 7 on that hole for a par 4, but I hit this tremendous tee shot. Now, my buddy may hit his off into the rough, but he's on the green and he pars the hole. The same thing maybe on the finishing hole, right? We're hitting into the green, and I may be lying 8. And if you know what that means is, if you got 4 shots to make it into the green, if lying 8 means you've already hit 8 shots and you're not even on the green yet. And that last shot into the green will go like 2 feet from the hole, and everybody at the clubhouse will be applauding for this great shot. But I hit 7 horrible shots before that, and my buddies are like, "Oh my God!" Well, I thought about that, and I'm not saying this to try to brag or anything. It's a psychological thing that at one time I thought I wanted to really be a great golfer, right? And then when I'm around certain people, it's going to raise my game. I'm going to pay a little bit more attention. I'm going to concentrate on that shot. I'm going to do what it takes to hit the shot the right way. So I know that it's in me, but there's not enough drive in me for that to be a golfer the entire round. But when I know that there's people around that are going to help me raise my game, either by an audience to watch, or there's money on the line, or something that's going to hold my concentration, it's going to raise the game. So play with people who are better than you, or put yourself in a situation where your game is going to be raised. So if you're in the business world, you want to be around major players, right? You want to be around your competition. You want to see what they're doing. Go to events. If you're a network marketer, right, are you hanging out with the people who are at the highest rank in your business or the lowest rank in your business? Now, this stands for any rank. I'm not saying you're not going to do the right thing by your downline, but what I'm saying is you need to spend time with the top people in your business so that you could bring that knowledge back and bring your people along. If you're in a relationship, right, hang out with people that are not fighting all the time or treating each other improperly. Raise your game. The other thing is, look, if you're the smartest guy in the room or the smartest guy in your group, either you're completely wrong or you need to hang out with a different group, because you need that to raise your game. So that's a few little things I wanted to share with you guys. Feel free to forward this on to other people. If you wanted some more information, talk about perfection, look at the word email. I'm going to have to fix that before this goes out. But I want you to send me an email. I'll send you some more information that I have. I'll also turn you on to some of the people that I listen to for personal development and everything else. And I'll glad to get to know you. Raise your game.